to Wayward Writers. My name is Heather Cashman.
I'm Stephanie Bearce.
And I'm Nicki Jacobsmeyer.
We are very happy to have you join us today for this special episode on breaking up with your agent.
Yeah.
So,
It's a very sad topic.
Stephanie, I know you have broken up with an agent or had an agent break up with you. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
It is a sad thing. Breaking up really is hard to do. And I think it's hard to do on both sides. This is really like a breakup with a boyfriend and girlfriend, or not quite divorce bad, but definitely boyfriend, girlfriend. And there are lots of reasons that people break up, once both sides or the other. But sometimes disasters happen. I had one, not only did I have to break up with the agent, but the whole agency fell apart. So that kind of disaster can happen to you. I had another one where the agency was sold, and the person I was sold with and assigned to was not going to fit my editorial and publishing needs. So I had to break up with that person. So breaking up is hard, and it's not something that you expect, because you're like, I'm going into this relationship. I'm so excited because I finally found somebody that wants to promote my book, and we're just going to make book babies together. It's going to be lovely. And then it falls apart.
Yeah, when you sign an agent, I know we've heard, oh, you've made it, or that phrase to me, I usually just really tight grin when someone says that, because the thing is that we never really make it by anyone's definition but our own, right?
Absolutely.
And so
yes.
I make it when I finish a first draft. I make it when I query, or whatever it is. I accomplish this great goal. And so then it's still a relationship, right? And it's not all roses. Right. And I think, yes, does it help to have someone champion your work? Absolutely. Like, that's definitely a plus, right? However, sometimes the championship starts to change, right? And there's amicable breakups and ones that are not so pretty. And we're going to discuss all those today.
So Nicki, you broke up with an agent too. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I had a very Cinderella fairy tale, like, courtship, I guess you would say. I had a critique from a conference with this agent who I purposely researched before. And I knew that she would be a great fit. And so I went, and she loved my manuscript. And she was like, I want to talk to you next week. It was I felt like it was a Disney movie. You know what I mean? And then she called, and we had
Hallmark. It was a Hallmark movie.
Yes, it was Hallmark. Better one. Yes. It was wonderful, and it was exciting, and just anything, you have to do your homework. And when she offered on the phone, I wanted to scream, yes, hell yes. But I tempered myself, and I was like, okay, and did my homework. Thank you so much. Can I have some client referrals, things like that. But so we did my due diligence and things like that, and tapped other agents I was querying, and we ended up signing together, and it was lovely and wonderful. And she's still lovely and wonderful.
We had an awesome person.
Yeah, we had an agency situation during COVID, and we left agencies. It was a matter, do you want to stay with the agency, Nicki, or do you want to come with me as an agent, or go all together? So that was a huge decision. And I think critique partners, critique groups, writing communities during this time, people that you can trust, is a huge sounding board, because it's very emotional.
It is. A breakup,
right? It is. And so we were together for 5 years, and she was wonderful. And we just started to have different goals in what I was publishing, what she was selling, things like that. And there were certain things that were happening that my gut was just, I don't know if this is me, or if this is normal, or just things like that. And as you guys know, you talk to people that you trust. And after a lot of thinking and praying, I decided that it was time for us to part ways. And we still talk and things like that. And it's been wonderful. And I love seeing her successes. And it was the right choice for me. However, there are times like right now, where I miss having someone to talk to that I can be like, okay, here are my projects. What do you think would be the most advantageous for me to pursue?
Yeah.
There's some yucky with it too, right? Even when it is amicable for both people. It's
Yeah.
right, Heather, if someone wants to break up or has, it's hard not to take it personally in a way.
Yeah.
It is. I've been agenting a little over 5 years now, and I have had one person break up with me. Was because I was pushing and pushing myself to put more books of theirs on submission than I probably should have in trying to get a sale for them. And I really overextended myself. And I'm also a very non-confrontational person. And so rather than actually saying what I should have said all along, I kept just trying to do what they wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a mistake on my part because I was not taking charge of my own career either.
Mm-hmm.
And so consequently, when I finally said, this is really untenable, like what we're doing is untenable, they just left me rather than trying to work it out. And I do believe we could have worked it out. I do think that we could have, and I tried. But yeah, that just ended. So, but there have been times that I have also broken up with clients for various reasons. Sometimes it was due to them breaking the agency contract, which is pretty serious. When I've been working on a manuscript for a long time and I've put a lot of editing time in it, and you don't give me time to sell it, and you go and sell it out from underneath me to a small publisher, then that's going to cause some problems.
Right.
Some other reasons is that we just have grown apart. Like Nicki said, when I first started my agenting career, I had this idea of what I really wanted to represent and what I thought that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, what I've discovered is that there are just some things that sell easier than other things. And like I need a diverse list to be able to sell enough stuff that I can survive as an agent. And the other thing is I have had clients who they stop progressing. They get an agent and then they feel comfortable and they stop trying to improve their craft. They stop trying to become the best writer that they can be, and they start relying more heavily on me than they should.
Mm-hmm.
Which causes me a lot of struggle too, because if I don't sell, then I don't make any money. And that becomes,
Eating is good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that becomes a real problem, right?
Food is
Because
good.
I really shouldn't be editing. I mean,
It
agents,
should
they'll
come
say,
beautiful.
like,
It should come to you pretty good.
it should come to me like submission ready if possible,
Yeah.
because what I really need to be doing is selling manuscripts, not editing
Mhm.
manuscripts. And there are a lot of agents who simply refuse to edit because they don't want to be
Right.
spending their time that way, because it really does cut into either the time that you have to sell things or it cuts into your personal life, which is what happens to me. I don't have time during the 10 hours that I spend agenting every day. I don't have time to edit as well. So then I edit at night or I edit on the weekend.
And I think that's the thing is we all have to be realistic. We're all people. And sometimes
Yeah.
in business relationships, and that's the hard thing, it's like writing is a business relationship. There's so much of our heart poured out on that page, and so many of our hopes and dreams that sometimes we really get cloudy on that business aspect. But the reality of it is agent as a career, it's your job to make money. And most writers are trying to sell books. And so that agent writer relationship is a business relationship. But sometimes things, like you said, they just change.
Yeah.
And I
it's not
think
intentional.
it's not, and you do grow or you don't grow.
Mhm.
And I wanted to address that, what you're talking about, the not growing. And Nicki, you were also saying it's like somebody will say, oh, you've made it because you've got an agent. And I think that's something really critical. for all writers to realize is that we work really hard to try and get an agent, but your writing career does not end there. That's just one piece of it. And you have to keep improving your writing and growing your writing, getting better so your agent can sell more manuscripts. And I think that is a critical part of it. It's not the end of your career. It's just one piece of your career.
Mm-hmm.
And it can change.
Yeah. And for traditional publishing, it's really just the beginning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you get an agent, you still have to sell. You still have to keep selling. You still have to build your career. Then you have getting the fan base, getting the publicity, getting the marketing. And when you start rolling all of that in, and then I start selling foreign rights and film and making your book into a property that then is branded, that's what my job really is.
Yes.
You know, is taking everything to the next level. And it's a long haul that needs some perspective, really.
So
Nicki, when you were
go ahead.
Nicki, when you were talking about you had some gut feelings that you needed to break up, what are some of those things? What are some red flags that you think any author might be looking at when it comes to not necessarily breaking up, but it's time for us to have a talk?
Sure.
You know, a good, honest talk about where the agent is and where you are, and that you can try and resolve it without breaking up. So what are some of those things that you, and Heather, what are some of the things you guys think us authors should think about?
When you are having that phone call before you signed with the agent, one of the questions you should be asking is, what is your communication style? Email, is it phone, things like that. And then you start to see on a regular basis the pattern of how you and your agent communicate. When you send your agent something, what is usually the turnaround for them to respond? And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's just an answer that you both know in the business relationship and that you agree on and communicate about. And I always had quick response from my agent, even if it was, hey, I see you, I got this, I'm doing this, I'll get back to you. That was one of the best things about my agent, is she was great in communicating. And we would have yearly, beginning of the year, we'd sit down and kind of goal set for the year. And I would come with, these are my projects, these are my works in progress, here's what I'm thinking, what do you think the market's doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I noticed when we weren't selling things, we'd gone to editorial meetings and acquisitions and R&Rs and things like that, but we weren't selling. As time went on, and that started to get less. There wasn't so much goal planning, and sales were going in a completely different genre than I was writing. And
meaning your agent was selling in completely different genres than what you were writing.
Still representing everything I wrote, which was a huge plus. But I guess it was several little things and things that we had discussed during the time. And hindsight, could I maybe have had one final conversation about it? Sure. However, all the little things for me felt like it was time. Because here's the thing, that I'm finishing up a project that I want to take to market and to be sold. And the thing is that if you have your agent go do that, and then you decide this isn't working out, that manuscript's done. I was at this point where I was like, okay, I'm wanting to start writing this stuff. I have this. What is this where I need to be now? And it was for the past 5 years. It was just her business changed, and what she was enjoying to sell and was able to sell was just different than mine. And
it's a classic, we've grown apart.
Yes, it's not you, it's me. No, it wasn't either of us. I think it's just, it was.
But that's reality. I think that's just a reality. And it's really not either person's fault. It's just changes in market. And Heather was saying you had an idea of what you wanted to do, and then there's the reality of what does sell and what you're.
And there's, when you write multiple things in multiple genres or trying to figure that out, there are things, if you write sci-fi and you are with a sci-fi agency with a sci-fi agent, that they know all the editors in sci-fi. Like there is that reassurance of that.
Mm-hmm.
I write for kids and adults, and I'm starting to hone in on what it is that really makes me tick. But when you are a jack of all trades and you want to find an agent that's a jack of all trades, you have to look at that. And I think that is something that I realized, and maybe she did too, and hadn't brought it up yet. I don't know, like her side, but it was just like, okay, you know what? I think it's time. And like I said, it's all good. And there's days that it's not good, right? Let's be honest.
And I think one of the things that is so hard in breaking up is because it's for writers, we feel like, oh my gosh, we finally made it. I have an agent and I should just cling to this no matter what, because I don't want to go back in the query trenches again.
Oh, absolutely.
You
I mean,
feel
it
like
feels like
anybody,
career suicide.
yes,
I mean,
it does.
yes.
That's
And if
it.
you are the
Absolutely
one,
does.
as the writer, breaking up with the agent, you are the one that is taking the key out of that gate. You've locked it, and then you've thrown it in the river. Yeah. And you're like, oh, I chose this. And that's there.
And
there
that
are
whole,
days
it is
where,
so
what
scary.
have I done?
Yeah.
It is
so
scary,
hard.
but I'll tell you right
So hard.
now, if you stay with an agent who is not invested in you anymore, then it's also career suicide.
It is.
I think that this is one of the things you were talking about, Nicki, where, what are some indicators that your relationship is maybe changing or growing apart? The communication will be lowered. It's the same as in any normal relationship, right?
Sure.
You start losing communication. You start maybe avoiding the tough subjects. Things aren't going to happen as fast as they used to. And don't get me wrong, like sometimes that is just because the agent becomes more busy. As my clients have become more successful, there are more and more things that on my plate just because I am doing foreign rights deals. I am doing those other deals for the same property, and properties are growing. And sometimes I can't help it, right? So I just only have so much of me. But at the same time, that's also an indication to you that, okay, maybe my agent doesn't have time for me anymore. Even if they love me, even if they love my stuff, maybe they don't have time for me. My family was in a car wreck and I had to go for 2 weeks and help them care for them in the hospital. That's going to cause issues. There are just going to be times like that. But I think that you need to look at like a consistent pattern over time of your agent not really communicating with you or bringing stuff up to you or asking you like, hey, what's your next project? What are you working on now? Showing interest in you. I think that's a big thing. And I think that if you are feeling that way, the very best thing you can do is immediately email them. Don't wait until things are so bad that you've seen like 10 indicators that, oh, like maybe it's time to break up. I feel like the time to face these things is, oh, my agent doesn't seem very communicative. Maybe I should email her and say, hey, like, how are you doing? What is happening in your life? Are things going okay? Because then it's not this massive confrontation, right? And then what happens is if you've emailed them 1 month and said, hey, things seem slow. Are you all right? Are things going okay? It's non-invasive. You're not pushing your agent to put something out there for you. You're not trying to get in their face about it. You're showing concern. But then 3 or 4 times of maybe doing that, now you have a pattern. And now you're seeing something consistent with your agent that you can say, hey, I've actually seen this pattern. Can you tell me, is something going wrong? So I feel like this whole idea of breaking up in the end, it should have started months before, right? Where you're checking in, you're building up some kind of like, I don't know what to call it, but.
And also that can also prevent a breakup too.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
And it is not fun to break up. I'm not confrontational too. So believe me,
Yeah.
it's a breakup don't want to do that. So if you can work on it, just like any relationship, and avoid it and talk about what you're worried about, say it to your agent and let your agent respond. I think just being aware that we're all humans, I think that goes a long way. But I do think, yeah, don't wait until you're so upset that I'm just going to break up with you. It's
Yeah.
work on the relationship and check and see. And it
Mhm.
still may turn out that both of you need to make some changes, but at least you've given it your all.
So how do you guys think? So say I'm agented and I'm a writer and I'm starting to have these concerns and I reach out and how are things going, et cetera, et cetera. Like, where is the line where just because I have an agent, you still don't want to be in the party of desperate, whiny client. So what, because you're agented
Yes.
doesn't mean that I'm freaking out all the time. So
Yeah, no.
I guess what things are like, oh, we can work on this, right? And what things are like, we're at a fork.
I think one of the things that would concern me is, let's say that I've turned in a manuscript. Maybe I've turned in 2 manuscripts to my agent and they're still not putting anything on sub, or it's been a long time since you've been on submission. I would really start to question things then, for sure. I would say, if you haven't had something on submission and it's honestly not your fault, like you've turned things in and you felt like they were as good as you could possibly make them, they've been edited well, they've been through your CPs, they've been copy edited well, and you've turned in what you think is a clean manuscript, and you're still not getting anything on submission, then for me, that would be a huge indicator that something is wrong. Maybe they have too many clients. They don't have anywhere to sub it. Maybe they have, just too much on their plate and you're not ever going to be on their front list. Those kind of things, I think, would be an indicator.
Looking at the reality, if you have spent years and years with the same agent and together you've tried and you haven't sold anything, that should be a warning sign to you as the writer too, that maybe it's not quite a fit for you. Either you're not exactly writing to the market and you might need to have that conversation with your agent. How do you change your writing to write to the market? I know we're all supposed to write our heart, but if you're dealing with it as a business and your agent wants to eat, she needs to sell something and you'd be trying to do that together. So just being realistic and looking at it. You mentioned, Nicki, that looking at what your agent is selling compared to what you are writing. And if there is a mismatch there, that's something that you probably need to address head on for both of you to make progress. Those are just some real practical aspects that you need to look at. And they're hard, but it's going to be better for both of you if you can figure that out.
Speaking, like you said, about the selling thing, we might have some listeners right now that have an agent and maybe they're questioning things, or selling books takes time. So also don't think, oh, I signed my agent 3 months ago and I don't have a book contract yet. Whoa, hold your horses, right? But I do think there's probably an amount of time. I don't know, is there a distinct amount of time? And my second question is, how do you determine if it's you and your writing or it's the ability of the agent?
That's a really good question.
I don't know if you can or not. And I think one thing I think that's interesting about this topic that I have talked to other agents about, and when I was interning, talked to some agents at the Bent Agency about this, because one of the things I used to ask is, I would see an agent at the agency I was interning at get turned down by an author, and then it went on to sell really well. And I would say, don't you feel really awful that that person went with someone else? Because at the time there was a lot I didn't understand. There was a lot of nuances I didn't understand. And very wise response to me was, if the author did not choose me, then it meant that I would not have probably been able to have the relationship needed with that author to get that deal. How do I know that the edits I did would have led to that 6-figure deal? How do I know? And I've had authors choose me same thing, who said to me, and I was going up against amazing agents that I would have never chosen myself over. And why did they go with me? Because of my editing suggestions, because that resonated with their vision. So I think you as an author, again, goes back to you have to stick true to your vision, know why you're writing what you're writing. Is that resonating with the agent that is offering? Is it like I made an offer recently and embarrassing, but on the call, I was crying because I loved their stuff so much. And it like hit me right in the heart. And it really resonated with me and I loved it. And I just thought, I know there's other people out there who need this book. And is your agent still resonating with your writing? Are you still getting that kind of feedback? Is your agent still telling you how much they love your writing and how it needs to be out there? Those kind of things. I think that it's important for you and your agent to be on the same page. And if you're starting to feel like you're not, then that warrants a conversation.
I think that's one thing that I think we keep saying. It's a conversation. We need to keep that conversation going and not let it build up, but it's a conversation that you need to keep having again and again.
And having it when you are not emotional.
Yes, I was just going to say
like
that.
it's important to stay 100% professional throughout this because there are times when I have told people I need a few days to answer you on this because they had said something or done something that was really upsetting to me and they didn't even realize it. So if I had responded in a way that was angry or unprofessional or overly emotional because I was hurt, then that is just going to make everything worse because you really need to have a clear head and you need to be rational and reasonable when you're discussing this stuff because a lot of times I think writers don't understand what it's like to be an agent. I thought when I was interning to become an agent, I thought I knew what it was like to be an agent. I had no idea what it was like to be an agent. And so I think that, again, this communication that is very professional and courteous and kind and continuing that conversation is extremely important to keep the relationship going where it needs to be going.
Yeah. And the devil's advocate to that, definitely as writers, we don't know what the agent relationship or what the agent is. On the flip side, unless your agent is a writer and submitting, they also don't know exactly how it feels to be on the other end. And I think sometimes that's where the rub comes. But like you said, it's something to communicate. What do they say? Think twice, speak once. And from a completely practical standpoint, if you're starting to wonder, okay, things have changed in our relationship, be practical and write down, like, what are the things that have been? Like when you first started, how were they? Also, remember, just like a marriage, there's a honeymoon phase. Yes, there's certain times where you're going to be like, hey, are you still into me? Things like that, whatever. But maybe, start.
If you love letters.
Things that you maybe see that are happening. And then talk to a critique partner and be like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. This is how it used to be. Or am I making these red flags up for no reason? Because we do get emotional. It is our work. After the 100th rejection on whatever, you're not thinking rationally usually. So that's the time to be like, okay, here's how it was. Here's how it is normally. And then these things are happening. And I've talked about this and get other people's perspectives that you trust. That does not mean go on social media and blast people. Don't do that. That's not what
about
we're
the
saying.
worst thing you can do.
Yes. Yeah, and sometimes people can talk you off the ledge.
Yes. And sometimes you need to be talked off the ledge, right? And then sometimes you need to be pushed because you are so terrified of being out there again, alone without.
Let's talk about that. What happens when you're back in the query trenches? Because it is a scary thing. And as an author, when you've been represented, Nicki and I've both been there, and you had to break up. And then you're back out in the query trenches. What advice can we give to those people who are in that situation right now? Heather, when should you jump back in? Should you take a break? What advice as an agent would you give to those who are back in the query trenches?
I think that 100% depends on where you are emotionally, because I think that if you are the kind of person who can take that anger and use it as energy, or take that hurt and use it as energy to propel you to put out 30 queries or whatever, great. But I would caution you to just be careful in the tone of your query. Be careful in the tone of your words. Can you look back and talk about your agent with kindness and gratitude for everything they actually were able to accomplish?
Yeah.
Then I would say, yeah, you're ready to query. I think that if you're going to take that frustration and you're going to funnel it, we'll feel it. I have read some queries that were like,
Right.
because one of the questions I have on my query manager is, have you been represented before? And I will ask you on an offer call, please tell me what happened, because the reality is I think that it's not going to stop me from offering if I love your stuff. But it is good to know what you've been through. I need to know what you've been through. I need to know what your agent did to you so that I can be sensitive, right? So that I can be aware of where you're coming from. And I think that it's just really important that you can have some space and have the proper, like, are you going to be able to trust an agent again? Maybe something's happened and you just can't even feel like you can trust anybody right now with your writing.
That's fair.
This is an emotional business, and sometimes it requires emotional healing before you can move forward. And I think that's important for you to know about yourself and to assess. I think that really amazing manuscripts, timeless manuscripts, things like that, they're still going to sell when you need them to sell. I don't think that you should jump back in when you're not ready.
I don't panic.
Yeah. Because then you're
That's
gonna, because
good
then you're just
advice.
gonna cause yourself more problems. You're gonna cause yourself to get an agent maybe who isn't really the best fit for you. And then that's number two. And then you're eventually gonna have a breakup with them too. I think it's important to take care of yourself first and then care of your career.
That mental health issue, you need to be in a good spot yourself.
Yeah.
In order to give your best to someone else too. So it's really a relationship thing.
Right? All of a sudden I'm thinking about high school and college and I'm like, oh.
It's the boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever thing. It's
And
anyway,
not
but what were you gonna
punish
say, Nicki?
and not punish the next agent for something the previous agent did. That's not fair either, right?
No,
And same
no
as
baggage for the new
that
relationship.
the agent taking something out on a new client when someone broke up with them, or I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's all relationships. Okay,
Yeah.
so if you're querying and there isn't a question asking if you're previously agented, in your query letter, Heather, do you recommend that you mention that you were previously agented, or do you leave that for a phone call?
I do recommend it. I recommend that somewhere in your bio you say, I was previously represented by X agent at X agency and we have parted ways. You don't, if it wasn't amicable, you don't have to say that. Like, you can just leave it at that. But I think mentioning it in your bio somewhere is a good thing. If the manuscript you're querying, and this is possible for you, if the manuscript you're querying has been on submission already, then it just tells the agent, you need to tell the agent that this has been subbed previously you can say, it's been subbed previously to 15 editors at the big 5 and medium houses. That's really important information for us to know as well. It's better for you to go on submission with a brand new manuscript. I think that gives you the very best chance, because then we have a clean slate. But you can go back, and I have gone back and put things on submission that a client had previously on submission and sold it. So it doesn't mean that it's forever dead.
Good.
It just means that you have to find different editors who haven't seen it before. I can't send it to the same people that the previous agent sent it to. Or if you were subbing something previously before you were agented and got rejections, I can't sub that again to those editors. That's a no-no. But I can sub it to people who haven't seen it. And so that's something you can do. But I would highly suggest that you start off with a brand new manuscript that has not been subbed by a previous agent. Yeah.
Good advice. That I think
Yes.
that's important for all of us writers to know when we're approaching that. And that's something, if you don't have something new at the time, that might be something that you need to take your healing time, do some writing, get yourself in a good place so that you feel confident in your writing and
Mhm.
yourself. And then you're really ready to go back out in query trenches. If you have your writing in the best possible place and you have your head and your emotions in the best possible place, then it, for me, when I had to do it, it was a lot easier to do that.
Yeah, it sets you up for success for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yes.
reminding yourself that you were represented by someone
Yes.
before. And that is something. And I think, yeah, being kind with yourself when if you switch agents or agencies, there could be a like dry patch where you just don't feel like writing, or which I was very grateful happened to me. All of a sudden, I felt totally ignited again with creativity. And I have no idea why, because I was happy and things were, they weren't miserable or anything like that. But I don't know, all of a sudden, it felt like I was writing, subconsciously writing for myself again. And I didn't have to like share it with anyone and to tell me if it was for the marketer. I don't know what it was, but like it can also just completely refuel you with a different
It can.
perspective. You don't know until it happens, but obviously if you can have conversation with your agent and with confident your critique partners or friends that are in the industry, specifically, that's very helpful for everyone involved.
And I
And I
think
do.
it's also important to remember that it could be the quality of your writing that, like I said
Mm-hmm.
before, maybe you're not leveling up, maybe you're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also really truly believe that when I just look at my query inbox and I see all the amazing writers that I would love to be able to take on as client, I think that we as writers tend to put a value on ourselves, whether we have an agent or we don't have an agent, then we're
Mm-hmm.
better or we're not better. And I think it's really detrimental
Mm-hmm.
because the reality is I see people in my inbox that are so incredibly talented, and I literally cannot offer them representation because of one thing or another, or maybe they're too similar to a client I already have, or whatever the case may be. Maybe like my family got in an accident and is just not a good time for me to offer on something. And I just hope that writers realize that just because your agent breaks up with you, that does not mean your career is over. That does not mean that no one else is ever going to want your writing again. I really hope that sinks deep into your soul because
Mm-hmm.
you have got to, first and foremost, be your own cheerleader.
Yes.
Like
Your
you
own
are always
advocate.
going to be your best cheerleader. And an agent is a great cheerleader, and an agent is a great champion and a fan. And I'll tell you, I am a fan. I am the biggest fan of my clients' writing. But I'm still not going to love your books as much as you love your books. So you have to be your own champion and you have to believe in yourself and realize that your career is in your hands. And there's not an agent in the world that can stop you if you put your mind to it. There are always other agents out there. There's thousands of us.
And this was a hard topic. I'm so glad we got to talk about it because as writers, we're either in the querying trenches or working it out with our agent, and our agent is working it out with us. And there's just There's a lot of dynamics. So I hope that this has helped some people today. If you're in the breakup stages, because breaking up is hard to do, or you have questions, please leave us comments, ask us questions. We'd love to address topics. And just know that we're here, Wayward Writers is here as a community for you. And we're available to help you through whether it's breakups or meetups or whatever's going on in your writing world.
Thanks for being with us. Conquer your path.